Well, George, thanks again for coming in today and being willing to describe your prosthetic and show others kind of how you use it and um, explain just kind of how it's worked for you.
Yeah, no problem.
So I think we'll get started by just having you take the prosthesis off, and then we'll go over some of the parts and pieces and how they work together. So what George is rolling down now is his suspension sleeve. One of the key factors of this prosthesis is vacuum, and to maintain the vacuum, we can't have any sort of holes in the outer sleeve. The next part is the cushion liner that goes over his residual limb. Another important part of the prosthetic is the flexible inner. So this has an actual texture to the inside of it, and that's sometimes how we get a little bit of breakdown in the liner. But the idea of it is it acts to kind of grab this liner to get a better interface between his limb and the prosthesis. This small nylon is used to allow the air to wick past this solid surface liner. So it allows the air to wick through, and it allows the vacuum pump to draw the air from the socket through the pump and then expel it and not allow it to get back in. So that's where the vacuum comes in. Do you pull this down typically, or you just leave it?
What, this?
Yeah.
No, I usually pull it up about halfway.
Okay. I think the manufacturer is meant for it to be pulled down over the wings, and that it kind of helps the sleeve last a little bit longer.
Well, yeah, it allows the
move.
the sleeve to actually slide on the...
And there are some other products that are used to kind of transition between the hard socket and the sleeve and kind of get some more longevity out of it. How long do they typically last you?
Most of it depends on my activity level. I would say 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Maybe a year sometimes. It just depends on how well I take care of it. If I don't clean it and take care of it, or if I'm going without a bad fit for a long period of time, and just kind of putting up with it being a little uncomfortable, then it obviously wears on the products because it's not supposed to have pressures and things like that in the wrong spots.
Right. So is that the inner liner we were discussing, or the sleeve on the outside?
The inner.
Okay, yeah. So how long do the outside sleeves typically last?
That all depends on how much abuse you put it through. So if you kneel down on the ground, and it depends on your weight too, like I'm a bigger guy, so if I go down on my knee too hard, it'll cut a hole in it right away. So I could put it on today brand new, go down on my knee too hard, and what it'll do is it'll make a little cut in it, and it'll allow a little bit of air through there. So if you're sitting down for a minute or two, eventually you'll feel that
prosthetic
suction
falling
release.
off.
Yeah, it'll release the pressure, the suction that's in there.
Could you kind of put it back on and pump it up for us quick?
Yeah.
So the outer sleeve seals against the socket, then there's this wicking part, so then it makes a seal on the liner, and then finally on the patient's skin. There we go. So as the vacuum draws, you can start to see the trim lines of the flexible inner socket and the rigid socket. And that's a good indication that it's drawing vacuum and suspending properly. Yeah. So compared to some other prosthetics you've had, what are the good and bad parts of the vacuum prosthesis?
I would say the good thing is that it creates a really tight connection between the prosthesis and my leg. Now that can also be bad if you're gaining or losing weight, or if you are not taking care of yourself properly. Because once you have that really tight connection, if you develop a sore or something, then it can exacerbate the issues that you have, because it's such an
intimate fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I've experienced in the past with some other folks is if they're having some other health issues, possibly, maybe it's, kidney function or heart function, they end up retaining a lot of water, their limb doesn't go all the way into the prosthetic, and then there's a void between that liner and the bottom of the prosthesis, and the vacuum will try to draw them in there, causing a big blister or some other problems on the bottom. So that's why we are extremely careful with patient selection, making sure that people understand that the sleeves can't have any holes in them. The pump needs to be working. You need to be getting all the way into your flexible inner socket, and all those things have to happen for this to be successful long term. So, do you remember how old this socket is?
Oh, it's at least a couple years, 2-3 years old, I think. It's been a long time since we made one.
And you typically don't have to add socks throughout the day?
Only if I'm on my feet for, if I'm standing for more than 3 or 4 hours, then I can definitely tell that there's, some movement in there. I can kind of feel, because I've been wearing this for so long that I can tell when there's a minor little difference, and I can feel that there's a little more room in there, rather than like when I first put it on during the day and, stuff like that. So
have you found that addressing those concerns earlier rather than later is the way to do it?
Yeah, regardless, this is a relationship that you and I are going to have forever, and it's not something where, like my family doctor, where I see him once a year. Like I mean, it's not uncommon to just see you once a year, but I am under the understanding, because of the process that I've been doing this for 20 years, that I may have to see you a dozen times in a year, depending on what I'm doing to myself or the equipment or whatever it is. So I just have to make sure that I'm seeing you appropriately, to make sure that my equipment or my skin or just my body itself doesn't create issues.
And what we've noticed too is, like, we were getting back to that feeling of movement in the prosthetic, that adding the sock right away when you feel that, versus just kind of pushing through it, because then that can create some trauma or problems with your limb that then the next day carries over and the following day carries over. So it's like not stopping and addressing the issue right away can, mess things up for a long period of time afterwards. So,
well, and I've been doing this long enough that, I tend to let things go like that sometimes, and then I pay for it the next day. And, then there's times when I have to take it easy the next day, or if I go too many days without taking the appropriate precautions to make sure those things don't happen, then I have to take steps back and, be patient about it before I create a bigger issue, which I have done in the past, because I was just young and dumb. Like I said, 20 years of doing this, I just pushed it to the limit and realized I pushed it too far, too many times. And now, obviously, I've, from the experience, learned that, I can't do that.
So, like when you travel and things, what do you run into, or how do you prepare? Say you're going on a trip for a week or two.
I always bring an extra inner liner, outer liner, any socks if I need them. I always bring my, depending on the person, you have to find something that's good for your skin. So it's whether it's the lotion or whatever you use to actually put the liner on first thing in the morning, any of those supplies. And then I bring some type of a cleaner so that I can clean things. Generally I wash them in the shower.
Okay.
And then dry pat them or whatever, and then put them back on. But once in a while I'll need to, use some alcohol, and that's pretty rare. Then I need to do that, but it's just all those little things I have to make sure that I bring, so that, because if I go somewhere and I don't know if there's a prosthetist nearby that might have the supplies I need, and I lose suction,
Right.
then
That's when you want to have that extra sleeve along, so you
Right.
just pop it on and you're back in business.
Right.
Yeah.
you never want to leave yourself with just the ones that you're wearing. You always have to have a backup, and as soon as you get to that backup, you better order some more, or at least have those backups there.
Yeah.
Because really what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't actually have the new products there when the products you have fail. None of this stuff lasts forever. And it just depends on your activity level and the abuse that you put it through. So you have to have those products there and available as soon as you need them.
Yeah, I think the biggest part that people sometimes struggle with is the vacuum and not noticing, okay, I popped a hole, or I popped
Right.
2 holes or 3 holes, and then you're wearing it for 2-3 weeks, and pretty soon you come in and say, I got this big callus on my leg or something, and it never happened before. And then, I'll look and I'll say, well,
Right.
how long have we been running it with the holes in the sleeve?
Right.
And a lot of times that's the start of the issues is
Well,
losing
and
that suspension.
Yeah, and just even like a little pinhole can cause you to lose suction, and all of a sudden the gel in there will connect again, and then it won't be a problem. And then you're doing something active, and then all of a sudden that hole opens up enough that you lose your suction. And a little, there's like little tricks and stuff that I've learned over the years. So when I originally put my outer liner on, I always put it on as high as I can, because the holes always happen across the knee or wherever the most stress is. And if I have it up as high as I can get it, if I happen to go down on my knee or just do something to abuse it, then I can always roll it down, slide it down, and then roll it back up, because it'll make a airtight connection against the socket still, whereas it won't pull the hole open where it bends.
One of the other neat tricks that my patients have taught me is they can use chunks of their liner. Like if you have an old liner, if you want to pull it down real quick, we'll just
Yeah.
show you. You can cut, so the other liner, let me see.
Oh.
So you just cut a section of this stuff that's uncovered, no fabric. And if you do end up getting a hole, you can put that where the hole is and then put the sleeve right over the top, and it'll seal it because it's
Yeah.
gel to gel. And it'll also kind of protect it if
Yeah,
you
you
are
can
doing a
make your
bunch
own
of
patches,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, especially in a jam. Well, great.
Yeah, the biggest thing from start of day to end of day is properly preparing and keeping things clean, knowing where your leg is, if you're needing to wear some sort of a sock at night to maintain the size of your stump or whatever. And then once you start, right away, regardless, the weight of everything is going to shrink your leg down, and recognizing how much it's going to do it and when it does it.
And
And
responding.
and respond to those steps, and respond to it by taking steps every day to, mitigate any
Yeah.
kind of ill fit.
Exactly. Whether it's adding a full sock or little short socks or something to accommodate that limb change that occurs throughout the
Well,
day.
and right away too, the thing about somebody that gets active again is they don't want to take the time to actually clean it every day. They just want to get going and just forget it's even there, and that's mistakes that I made. And so daily I clean it on some level, whether it's I'm wiping it down or washing it, or like I said, this material is not made to be wiped with alcohol every day, but I do it once in a while because this is a closed environment.
Right.
And it needs
And you
to
let
be
that air out. You
and
don't-
then I let it air out.
Yeah, you don't want to put anything on your leg that you just put alcohol on.
Oh, no.
Nope.
No.
Nope, you don't want that. So it's
Yeah.
just to clean the liner, then it kind of
Right.
evaporates, and then you do your other routine. I know in
Yeah,
the
if
past
I-
we've used the Sensicare cream.
Yep.
I don't know what you're using now, if it's similar to that.
Same thing, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's important too. If people are, going to a store and picking up some very fragrant lotion or something, that's going to
No.
cause a rash immediately.
Yeah.
And that's when people will call up and say, well, I'm allergic. Probably not allergic to the liner, probably using something on your skin has some heavy perfumes and stuff, and that can be damaging to the liner, and it can be irritating to the skin.
Well, the soaps that you use presently before you lose a limb or before you go to a prosthetic doesn't mean that those same soaps are going to work for you after your leg is enclosed in that environment. So all that stuff changes, and it's kind of a trial and error and you have to pay close attention to your leg, and you have to, touch it and feel it and every day, because you can't see the back of your knee, unless you're, a gymnast or something, but I can't. So I have to make sure that I touch things and feel things. And then I also don't have feeling in some of my legs. So I have to visually and just touch it and see it and make sure that I'm not breaking down the skin and, just managing it.
Yeah, it's definitely a process and something you have to just make a part of life, right? It's something if you want to be successful, you got to take the steps and make sure that you understand it, make sure I understand what your needs are, and how we can kind of partner together. And
well, what a lot of people don't understand is it's those tiny little things that end up being big things in this whole process. And if they're not talking to you about every little thing that they're doing or products they're using or whatever their process is, it doesn't allow you to help them get back to a better activity level.
Yeah, we really want to kind of streamline the variables, so we're not introducing new ones all the time and trying to figure out what caused things to stop working when they were working really well for quite a long period.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, you have to understand that your prosthetist is going to become your best friend, because you're going to see him or her all the time. There is nobody out there that can put you in a leg and then instantly everything be okay. So if it's all new to you, or if you've had issues or weight changes or shapes of your leg changed or whatever it is, there's always a process. It's never a 1 or 2 appointment thing. It's just, it takes time to get to the point where you're not having any issues.
Do you have issues changing shoes? How do you deal with shoes? Like heel heights and stuff, does that?
Yeah, for me, I have to keep my shoes about the same. The biggest thing is not going too big with a heel. You can wear a slipper in the house and it's not too big of a deal, but it does change the way that your leg fits. Not really fits, I guess is the right word, but how it walks and how it feels. So if you do a lot of stairs, it's going to put a lot of different wear and tear on your leg than it would if you were just walking or just did some sitting during the day or whatever your activity level is. So there's a lot of factors that go into that stuff. But when it comes to the shoes, I change my shoes at least within 6 months, because you can tell a huge difference. Either way, the shoe breaks down, and it changes the way that your gait is and the way you walk and the way it feels, and it can actually create sores because your leg is set up to have that heel the way it is, and not for
it to be smashed to smithereens or whatever.
Smashed to smithereens, or
all of a sudden it's pitching you one way, or
exactly.
Yeah, you're wondering why you're not walking correctly, or like
and if
your
you're
balance.
Not keeping your shoe tight on your foot shell, then it's just going to wobble around in there, and it's just going to tear up your shoe and the sole, and so it's going to wear on the shoe itself, and it happens so slowly that you don't notice it until you put a new pair of shoes on, and all of a sudden you go, oh wow, that feels really good. So again, goes back to taking the time to manage all those little things and talk to you about all those little things and say, why I wear these shoes and I never tie them, or I just whatever.
Yeah, how come it feels like I'm walking down a ramp all the time when I wear these boots, or yeah, those are things that people kind of have to take into consideration. And we can work around those things. It's just, if you're always going to wear boots, we're going to get you a foot that works best with boots.
Right.
But if you're someone who wears tennis shoes or loafers or something flat, then we gotta gear it towards that, and then make the adjustments for the other ones when we can.
Yeah, I mean, if you wear sandals, then you set your leg up for that. If you wear boots and then sandals another day, then you just have to talk to your prosthetist, or I would advise talking to Brent here at Access, but that's my thing. But you just talk to him and you come up with a game plan to manage all those different things.
Well, I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your experiences. I'm sure it means a lot.
You're welcome.